Hello, hello. I am so excited for our topic today. We are talking about how to do a time audit. And stay with me because I know that audit isn't the most fun word. It's probably boring at best and scary at worst. But I promise you, I'm going to try to make it as painless as possible. And it really is such an incredibly powerful tool when you're wanting to be more intentional with your time, which is just such a huge part of what I talk about here. So I'm going to share with you why doing a time audit might be a good idea for you in a few different ways you can use it, actually, how you can get started, and then different strategies depending on what your goals are for your time. So that's what we're getting into today. Tell me hello if you're watching. And if you don't know me, I am Jenna of J-Lane Virtual Solutions, where I help you spend less time on the must-dos and create more time for joy through simple systems and rhythms, both for your home and for your business. And we're getting intentional about your time so that you can do more of what is most fulfilling to you. So a lot of what I talk about here is to help you take back control of your time and be more intentional with the way you spend your time. And it's really hard to talk about using your time intentionally without getting into this subject of time audits. Now, before you can make an effective plan for how you want to spend your time, you have to know where it's currently going. It's kind of like a budget, right? So you have to know where your money is going so that you can make a plan for what you want to be doing with it. It's the same thing with your time. If you want to think of it more like a budget or a plan for your time, the time audit is where you're collecting the data and the information that you need to make those decisions and make that plan that you want. And you might be surprised when you see how much time you thought you were spending on certain things, and then you get the data about how much time you are actually spending. It can be a little shocking sometimes, the difference between the two. So I want you to have the actual information and not be guessing and then be disappointed when your plan isn't working out the way you wanted it to. We often underestimate the amount of time that we're spending on things, and so if you're underestimating and plugging things into a plan, then it isn't going to work out the way that you want. You're going to find that you're running out of time for things, or that your day's over and there was a huge block that just didn't seem to fit anywhere. And then from a business standpoint, doing a time audit or tracking your time, even on an ongoing basis, can affect things like your pricing decisions. So if you're wanting to know how much time you're spending on work for a certain client, even if you're not charging by the hour, you still want to make sure that you're being compensated the way that you want to be for your time. Or when you're sending out proposals or putting together new packages, if you have an idea of how much time it takes you to complete certain tasks or certain types of projects, it's going to make it a lot easier for you to make those decisions around your pricing. So the process that you'll follow as I walk you through the steps of the time audit today are going to depend on your goals. And so, like with anything, I definitely recommend that you have a goal or a purpose in mind before you begin this process. What is it that you want to get out of this? So I'm sort of going to look at this through two different lenses. And you can decide which one is the priority for you right now. I wouldn't recommend necessarily that you try to do them both at the same time if this is your first time tracking your time. But there are kind of two different camps. One is the overall picture of your day. So this is more your big picture of your day, your week, how much time are you spending with your kids, how much time are you spending on chores, how much time are you working? How much time do you have for yourself or time with your spouse or partner or friends or whatever? The other lens you can kind of look through is focusing in on your work time and figuring out how to be efficient within the hours that you want to be working, right? So make a decision. Let me know which direction you are thinking of heading with this. in the comments and let me know, where are you focusing your attention? Do you want that big picture, bird's eye view of your overall time, or are you going to kind of focus on your work time for now? And then I also want you to think about, is there a specific problem that you're trying to solve? So is there something that is constantly on your to-do list that just isn't getting done? Are you working more hours than you want to and still feeling like you're just keeping up? Okay, is there a problem that you're trying to solve, or is there something new or something that you want to add for yourself or for your family that you're trying to create a chunk of time for? All right, think about really what the intention behind your time audit is. Why are you doing this? Why is it important to you? And what's the goal of it? All right. So the first, well, you've already made some decisions, right? You've decided your goal, you've decided your intention. Next, I want you to decide, how long are you going to track your time? Now, I recommend using some kind of tracking, especially for your business, most of the time, but you'll be a little stricter about it during these time audit periods when you have a really specific goal that you're collecting information for. So if this is your first time, I would recommend that you just start with a week. If the thing that you're tracking, if you're doing like a longer term project or something like that, definitely adjust that. If you're doing a project that normally takes you 2 weeks and you want to know all the time that goes into it, you can make that decision. But for general purposes, start with a week and take it from there. It's not super intimidating. Tracking your time doesn't take a whole lot of time or effort, really, and I'm going to actually show you how to do that. But yeah, start with a reasonable goal as far as the time period goes. So at different times and different seasons, you might track your time differently. So sometimes when I would really recommend that you take a look at where your time's going is if you have a change in your schedule or your routine. So maybe, when we make that shift, if you have school age kids like I do, making that shift from school time to summer break, or when they go back to school in the fall, kind of taking a closer look at your time. Or if maybe, I don't know, other demands on your time change. If you start taking a new class, or if you work from home but you're working for someone else and their expectations of your work hours change, right? Another time might be when you have new clients coming in, or when you're playing around with new types of work. If you're offering new services to people, you definitely, like I mentioned before when I was talking about pricing, you definitely want to know how much time you're putting into all of those things. And especially when you're looking at the full client experience, your time that you're spending on a client, if you're a service provider or a coach, is not just the time that you are face to face with them, or just the time that you're working directly on their tasks, right? There's also customer care behind the scenes that goes on, where you're going through whatever your onboarding process is, bringing them on and preparing to do that work, following up, email communications, billing, all of these things. So consider the big picture when you're looking at like client and project time there. And then another time that you may want to do a time audit or take a closer look is when things just feel a little messy. If you're feeling really busy, if you're feeling really stretched, or like you're always in a time crunch, or you're always just feel like you're rushing through and never have enough time to get it done, let's slow down for a minute and take a break. And not take a break, but take the time to look at what you're actually doing and where your time is actually going. So here's the part where I want to find out real quick if Facebook Live is going to let me share my screen. I don't think it does, but I wanted to try if I could. Yeah, I don't think it's going to let me do that. So I will drop some links in here. I wanted to actually show you the tool that I like the best for time tracking, which is called Toggle Track. It's totally free. There is a paid version, but I have never used it. So I'm going to put the link in the comments so that you can grab it if you want to give it a try. If you already use a time tracking tool that you like, then that is fantastic. Keep on with that. But if you're in need of a new tool, this is the one that I would recommend. And so there are a couple different features to it that I'll talk about a little more as we go through the actual process. But the main ones that I've utilized and that I would recommend that you use are the actual timer, where you can run a timer while you're doing whatever you're doing and it'll track your time for you, and then the reports feature. So we'll go into both of those in a little bit more detail as we go here. So I'm going to walk through each of those two different scenarios I mentioned earlier, one at a time. So the first scenario being you want a big picture view of your whole day, your whole week, and where your time is going. The second scenario is our more business focused scenario. So if you're looking at your overall time, your projects, so inside Toggle, you can break up what you're tracking by client, by project, and then you can add a description to it as well. So in this case, I don't think that you necessarily need multiple clients. You could just be the client. And then your projects are going to reflect your main buckets of time and energy. So I did a live on this topic specifically a couple of weeks back. So if you missed it, I would definitely recommend going back and checking it out. I will also put that link in the comments here. So that you can pop back and watch that if you haven't already seen it. But the basic idea is that in your life, you're going to have some sort of big overarching areas where significant amounts of your time and energy are going to go. So for instance, one might be your family, one might be your home and all of the chores and errands and whatever that need to be done to keep your physical home running smoothly. One might be your business. One should be you personally, taking care of yourself, your wellness, hobbies, interests, things like that. So you're going to have a few of those main buckets. Those will be your projects within your time tracker. And then if you want to have more details about what it is you're doing within those time periods, you can use the description feature. So for example, if I was taking my son to basketball practice, my client would be me, my project would be family, and then my description might say something like kids activities, or if I wanted to be really detailed, I could say basketball practice. So that's kind of how you're going to set up your timer. For this one, I would definitely recommend that you also use the app on your phone. I'm generally a computer type of lady. I don't like to do a lot of things on my phone. But if you're trying to get a picture of your overall day, you're not going to be carrying your laptop or even probably a tablet around with you. You're going to have your phone with you. So that's where you can go in. And whether you enter it on your computer or your phone, it all syncs up. So you'll get the same reports no matter where you're tracking that. So so as you're shifting activities, you'll just shift your time tracker. So maybe when you wake up in the morning, you're in family mode. You're getting the kids ready for school. So you have that family project on. Then once the kids are on the bus, maybe you like to do a little bit of reading or a meditation in the morning. That would go into your personal project, that personal time. Then maybe after that, you grab a cup of coffee and sit down and you do a chunk of work, and that goes into your work time. So it doesn't have to be super detailed. It's really that big picture view. And then what you can do with this scenario is if you see an area, like if you see that your home area where you're doing chores and errands is like way more time than you thought, then you can go back and do some more detailed tracking just within that category to figure out maybe like where there's some time being wasted or where things could be a little bit more efficient or streamlined. But in this first round, like it's really big picture. I want to make it as simple as possible for you to make it through that week and collect the information that you really need and that you really want to collect. Now, the second scenario is your business focus. And because this is a little bit more focused, we are going to have some more detail here. So when you're figuring out your clients, your projects, sort of the categories you're using to track your time, we want to kind of go back to your goals and what it is that you're trying to accomplish through the time audit. Are you just wanting to see, are you wanting a clearer idea of how much time you're spending on things for pricing updates potentially? Or are you working way more time than you want to? Are you finding that you're getting your client work done, but then when it comes to your own business, to your own marketing or admin or whatever, you don't have enough time to get through it all? You know, think about what your goal is, and that's going to help you decide the way that you want to line it out. So the easiest way to me is to list it out by client. So each client in Toggle will be an actual name of your client, and you will use your business also as a client. So you'll have projects for yourself, like content creation, networking or sales calls, your admin, things like that under your client, your business. And then for your other clients, it's going to depend on the type of work that you do. So I have worked for 3 years as a virtual assistant. So some of the projects and tasks that I know have come up often for me are things like scheduling emails, scheduling social media posts, podcast support, creating landing pages and automations, things of that nature. So I would create projects with all of those titles. And if some clients are different from others, you're able to customize that in Toggle so that you can list out the main projects that you do for each client. All right. And whichever way you lay those out, you're going to be able to see it in the report, whatever information that you want. So we'll get around to that in a little bit here. But kind of like with anything, when you're first auditing your time, it's going to feel like a little bit of trial and error, and the way you do it is going to change over time. So for this first period, this week or whatever amount of time you chose, set your categories and just stick with them. Be consistent throughout that whole time period so that you can get a report that gives you a baseline of information. And then if the next time you want to go back and do another audit, you want to shift things around again, you totally can. It's most helpful, especially if there are like big goals you're trying to reach, if you continue beyond that 1 week, because then you can look back at your reports from week to week or month to month and see where you're at. Now, I want to give you an example about how things kind of shift and change, because I have done a lot of different configurations with my own time tracking over the years, because this type of thing is entertaining to me. I don't know what to tell you about that. But there are times, especially when I start with a brand new client, where I'm really tracking everything super closely, like email scheduling, social media scheduling, podcast show notes, podcast, like blog setup, whatever. Each one is its own project. Right now, for instance, I'm in a season where I've kind of been working with the same clients for a while. I'm bringing in this new stuff, so I'm really wanting to create more time for my own marketing and content creation and connecting with people with my coaching offer. And so my time tracking right now looks very basic. I plug in and the project is either client work or it's a marketing project for my business. So under client work, I label Mondays, Monday. On Tuesday, the description says Tuesday. So it's a really broad picture, but it's still giving me that breakdown of, okay, how much time am I spending on client work and how much time am I pouring into my own business? Because right now, finding the right balance of those is something that's really important to me. So that's just one example of kind of how it changes over time. You don't have to always be tracking your time and you don't always have to be super strict with it. But there are times when it can be super, super beneficial for you to have that detailed information. Now, as with everything, I want to make this as simple for you as possible. And honestly, the hardest part, I think, about tracking your time is remembering to turn your tracker on and off. So I have made this a part of my morning routine. One of the first things I do, so I sit down at my computer, I open up my Trello, which has it has my everything. It is my world on that Trello board. And then I also have boards for my clients in Trello as well. So I open up my Trello and then I open up my Toggle and I get it running. The other thing that helps me remember to do that is that I have bookmarked it and I have it as like the first little bookmark. I know you can't see it, even though I'm pointing at it right now. It's the first little bookmark on my browser. So number one, it is right there. I see it first thing. And number two, the little icon is gray when it's not running and it's pink when it's running. So then I can see that it's actually going, because the next hardest part is remembering to turn it off. And Toggle will tell you, you'll get an email that's like, hey, your timer's still running. Did you mean to do that? And you can go in and edit. If you've forgotten to turn it off, you can go in and like enter what your estimated time was. Because that definitely happens. So don't be too hard on yourself if you forget once or twice. You could also do something as simple as putting a sticky note on your computer or your desk or wherever you're going to see it to remind you that you are tracking your time this week. So the last thing that I want to talk about is using those reports, because we're going to go through this process, we're going to get a bunch of information, and then I want you to be able to actually use it, right? You want to use it to make the decisions to use your time the way that you want to. And so this is where I really wish I could share screen. But what you're going to find when you look at Toggle is on the left-hand side, you see your timer, and then you're also going to see a tab called Reports. And in here, you can sort your time reports in a ton of ways, which again is something that I find very amusing. I realize you may not, but you'll see a block where you can choose the time frame that you want to look at. There are options for this week, last week, this month, or you can customize it just like clicking on a calendar. And then that will show you all of the time that you worked. You can also break it down by client. You can choose one or multiple clients to view at the same time. Same thing with projects. And you can even go into the description and type in a certain word. Like for me right now, where I have a project called client work and my description says Monday, I can search for Monday and it'll show me in the last month how many hours I worked on Mondays, right? And so I can use that information to kind of average it out. If I have a month worth of data, I can say, okay, I worked 20 hours on Mondays over the last month. That was 4 Mondays. Okay, so I'm working about 5 hours a day on Mondays, just as an example, okay? So that data, you can play with it, you can look at it, you can get details or a summary view, and that is where you're going to really find out if your time estimate is matching up with the reality of the time that you're spending. All right, so if you're still with me, you made it. Hooray, we did it. You're ready to start your time audit. So the first thing to do is choose your start date and your end date. And I want you to tell me in the comments when you're starting your next time audit so that I can help cheer you on, answer any questions as you go. And just to recap, once you have those dates, your next steps are to sign up for a free Toggle Track account if you don't already have one. You're going to set your goals and make your tracking plan. That means picking out what labels you're going to use for your clients and projects. Then you're going to estimate how much time you think you're currently spending in those areas so that we have a baseline, something to compare it to. You're going to go through and track your time, leave yourself those notes, bookmark things, whatever you need to do to help you remember. And then at the end of your tracking period, at the end of that week, or if you're tracking on an ongoing basis, you might want to check every Friday or the last day of the month. Check in on your reports and see where your time is actually going, because this is the information that you'll use to actually create your ideal schedule and take back control of your time. All right, if you're spending more time on things like chores and errands or your business or whatever than you want to be spending, and you're ready to get more organized and efficient, I would love to help you with that. Together, we work one-on-one. We create structures and systems and rhythms that save you time and energy, both in your business and in your home life. And it's all customized to you, to the way you live in this current season, the way you naturally like to function. I am not going to hand you some plan that I made up and say this is exactly how you have to do it, because that's probably not going to work for you. We're going to figure out what type of strategies and tools do work best for you and create a structure that supports you and all the different parts of your life. So if that sounds amazing to you, start out by booking a free 45-minute session with me, and we'll talk about where the biggest source of friction is, where that biggest time discrepancy is for you, and what your first steps are to a more streamlined life. I want more time for you to do the things that bring you joy and fulfillment and feel like you have a little bit more ease in your days. So I would love to talk with you. I will be back here next week. What is our topic next week? I believe it is... Oh, perfect. The reasons why systems and routines maybe didn't work for you in the past, and some ideas on how to do better moving forward to create things that will actually work for you. So perfect segue there. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope to see you next week. Leave me any questions, comments, anything you need support on. Feel free to leave a comment, send me a DM, and I would love to help you with it. All right. Have a great day.